mission is to lead people to be passionate followers of Christ. So everything we do, hopefully everything we say, leads in that path and in that direction. If you are a first-time guest, we want you to stop off at the welcome table at the front. We have a gift. It is a fabulous gift. I will give you a clue in. And it also gives you some information about some different activities and some different things that you can become involved in within our church. And maybe an explanation of some different things. So please, if you're a first-time guest, we're glad that you're here, but we want to get to know you a little bit more also at the welcome table. We are having a class right after this service called We Believe. And it's going to be in this back hallway in the activity room. And We Believe is just kind of a basic of what it means to be a follower of Christ. And then that next step is, what does it mean to be baptized? So if you have any questions on that, please stay after and go to this back hallway in the activity room. And I don't make it back there very often, so you'll have to ask where the activity room is. I'm really sorry. Okay? But I'm sure that it's clearly marked. Okay, so activity room back in the back hall, and we hope to see you there. Our new series is Breathe Deep. Now, most of us breathe very shallowly. That's just how we normally breathe. We breathe with just a small capacity of our lungs. Every once in a while, our body's like, oh, we need a little more, and we call it a sigh, right? And we do that several times. But a lot of times, our body needs even more oxygen than that. And we need to breathe deep so that oxygen can go to every cell of our body. Right? Isn't that incredible? Sometimes when we've had a really rough day, or a rough week, or we're stressed, or we're angry, before we react, what do we need? A deep cleansing breath, right? And things seem better even after just one breath, because of the power of oxygen within our body. Breathing deep is so important. Now, as a music teacher, I teach deep breathing because we have to be able to make it through the next phrase, right? So you have to sing, and be able to make it through the phrase. So, you are in luck, right? Because I'm going to teach you how to breathe deep. Okay, so what you're going to want to do, most of us breathe from our shoulders. Even when we're running or anything, oh, no. That only uses this part of our lung capacity. We want to use full lung capacity, so what I want you to do is I want you to take your hand and I want you to put it on your abdomen right here, okay? Because this is really where the deep breath comes from, right here. So I shouldn't see any shoulders lifting, no shoulders. Concentrate on your breath coming from right here. And I want you to breathe in really deep, and I want you to feel your hand expand as you're breathing deep. So ready? Go. And then you let it out. Okay, now, I do have to warn you that sometimes when you let it out, you might want to watch the person in front of you because other things might fly out. Keep your gum in your mouth, okay? Yeah, okay, so no gum in the hair in front of you or spit particles. Okay, whatever. All right, so here we go. We're going to breathe deep. We're going to breathe deep for 4, and we're going to get full lung capacity, and then I want you to take even more in. And then when you release it, all right, are you ready? Schultz? All right, here we go. Ready? Breathe in deep for 4. You're one of those kids, aren't you, in class? He's not doing it. He's not doing it. I love you, Bobby. All right, here we go. We're going to breathe deep. 4 counts. Ready, and go. No, even more. Let it out. That may be a deeper problem. Just saying. All right, yes, one more time. Breathe deep. Shake your shoulders out. Relax your shoulders. Breathe deep. Ready? Oh, isn't that great? Now, in this series, we are exploring the deep breath in relationship to Jesus Christ. Because when we take more of him in, when we allow him to permeate our entire being, how different would that look? Let's explore what it would be like to have Jesus be every part of our lives. To pause, to take a deep breath, to allow him to work in every cell of our being, to have him help us through the long phrase. So I invite you, relax. Take a deep breath.
I love the lyrics to that chorus. Just that idea of breathing his peace in, of the breathe your peace on us that we might breathe you deep. In our offices at church, we're on the second floor, and there's a guy on the third floor, and apparently whoever has been there before us just smoked a massive amount in that stairwell. And it's just so interesting because every day when I go to leave, I open up the door, and it's just that smell just fills your lungs. And it's 2 flights down, and by the time you get to the end, you open up the door, and it's just like that outside air just completely fills your lungs. And it's just that breath of fresh air. And I've always thought that that's what church should be like. I always thought it should be like I'm in this environment, I'm doing all these different things, and I feel like I can't quite get a deep breath. And then I come in, and it's just, and it feels like your lungs are full. In John chapter 14, these are Jesus' words. He says, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give it to you as the world gives, so do not let your hearts be troubled and do not be afraid." He says, "My peace I give you." And in their culture, peace was something incredibly, incredibly important. And it's very different from us today. For them, peace literally meant like peace from war. Because how it worked is in the summers, the armies from different nations would go out and battle each other. And so when Jesus made the statement he says, "My peace I give you," he literally meant you will be able to be alive. Like you will not die, you will have life. And so peace was this incredibly strong word that meant life. For us, it's a little different. Peace for us is not usually, we don't usually think about it in terms of war. We think about it in terms of hurry and busy and the constant amount of things that just build up on us, of things we have to do, problems we have to solve, things we have to get done, issues that we have to deal with. And so for us, the idea of peace is not nearly as much about war. It's much more about being able to sit back and just take it all in. But the metaphor is the same. Is that for us, when we think about peace, we think about life. And so, this morning, I don't know what you're carrying. I don't know what you brought in here with you that you don't want to have. I don't know what issues are weighing upon your shoulders, what problems are occupying your mind. But I want you to know that the offer that Jesus gives you is peace. It's peace. He's saying, I want you to have life. And so this is what we're going to do. We're going to bow our heads in prayer. And then I'm just going to leave it silent. And whatever it is you're struggling with, whatever it is you're dealing with that you don't want to hold on to, I just ask that in this moment you just say, God, I give this to you. And I want your peace. So whatever that is, would you just bow your heads right now and give it to him? Father, I thank you that we can gather here this morning. And Lord, I just pray whatever burdens we carry, whatever things are weighing us down, Father, that in return we would accept your peace, that we would give those up, because we know that you can handle it. You are big enough to handle our problems. And so, Father, I just pray that in this moment that we would experience that peace. We would experience that life that you offer us. And so, Lord, in this moment, help us to find you. Help us to push aside all the other things that become first in our life. And help us to find you in the wonderful life you offer instead. And I pray this in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen. If you have your Bibles with you this morning, please open them up to John chapter 2. John chapter 2 is where we're going to start. And we're in the first week of this series that we're titling Breathe Deep. And this is why we're doing this series. I think a lot of times when we think about our faith and when we think about the message of Jesus, it very much comes down to a list of do's and don'ts and teachings and even miracles. And somewhere along the way in all that, we miss the heart of what he was doing. If I say, like, we get so wrapped up oftentimes in the details of who Jesus was and what he was doing, that we miss the overarching themes of what he was trying to accomplish and the things that really characterized his life. And what we see, the biggest thing that we see over and over again is that Jesus came so that people would have life. Like, that's it. And he says it over and over again. I came that they might have life and have life to the full. Literally, so that people would be full of life. That was the whole purpose. And I think somewhere along the way, sometimes we miss that. And so this is what we're going to do in this series. I just want to look at 4 different encounters that people have with Jesus and how he brought life to them. And each of the encounters are very unique. Each of them are very different. Some of them get a little weird at times. Some of them happen in some really unlikely scenarios. But for each one of them, Jesus encounters someone who was struggling with something, who had an issue, and he brought life to that situation. And so we're going to start today in John chapter 2. And if you're unfamiliar with John chapter 2, it is the story of when Jesus turns water into wine, which is very important because wine, in Bible times, in their culture, wine was a metaphor for life. It really was. We talk about peace. We use different things as a metaphor for life. But for them, wine literally meant like the best of life. Now, before we hop into that, I want to give a few things to make sure that we're all on the same page with this. Sometimes people really want to avoid this teaching because they don't want to talk about wine, because they want to discourage anyone from using wine, which I understand. I get that. One of the things that has actually been taught it just doesn't make any sense is they try to say, well, wine was so different back then than it is now. Like, wine was like grape juice. But then people get drunk, and it's just like, I don't know, how much grape juice do you really have to drink to get hammered? I mean, just to be clear, that's not an actual question. I don't want you to figure that out on your own, okay? But I like they get drunk. But wine was very different in their culture. It was something kind of sacred. It was something really respected. It was something that you didn't abuse, which I think is somewhere where we get off today. It's often abused. That's not to say there aren't people who abused it in the Bible. Like we have for instance, of Noah when he gets off the ark, basically gets hammered and ends up naked, and his sons find him naked, which I judged for a while, and then I put myself in his spot, and I thought, if I had spent that much time with my family and a bunch of animals on an ark, like, I too would have a drinking problem, I believe. So don't judge Noah too harshly. But it was somewhat different than that. It was something like, it wasn't to be abused, because this is what was the best of life. And so literally, when you see wine in the Bible, wine meant this is the best of life. And it's really interesting to me that we get this scenario where we're going to see Jesus' very first miracle, his first miracle that he performs, is at a wedding, and it's turning water into wine. So let's take a look at it. This is John chapter 2, and we're going to be in verses 1 through 10. And it says this: On the third day, a wedding took place at Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. Now I want to pause right there, because there's a massive amount of information that we learn just in those first two verses. First of all, weddings, they were different. Our weddings, like hour-long ceremony, 3 to 6 hour party if you're really crazy, like somewhere in that range. And that's kind of it. Some of you, like 30-minute party and then let's go. I understand that. But their weddings were week-long celebrations. Okay? And all the men said, week-long celebrations were their weddings. Because weddings for them, weddings were the greatest celebration there was. And so they wanted to extend it out. And it was a huge deal. Like, it was a big party that happened. And Jesus is invited to a wedding with his disciples, and he goes. Now, for me, this is incredibly important, because he has not yet begun his ministry. He has not yet begun accomplishing the things that were the reason why he came to this earth. There are no miracles. We don't see teachings. We don't see things like that. But Jesus finds himself at a wedding. And so we would go, okay, so if he's not here for miracles or teachings or things like that, and we see evidence that he goes to parties a lot, like he finds himself frequently at weddings, then why was he there? And the answer is really simple. It's the fact that, you know what? Jesus just liked being with people. He liked hanging out with people. Which I know at first that doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but this is, like, when I was growing up, the picture of Jesus that I had is like, he would go out in front of everybody, he would heal somebody, he would teach for a little bit, and then he'd go back and study his Bible. And then, like, the next day would pass, and he'd do the same thing. And I thought it was just like this continuous pattern of, I'm going to study my Bible, I'm going to pray, and then I'm going to teach and do miracles. And that's about his whole life. That's all I thought he ever did. But we see early on, Jesus just goes and hangs out with people because he liked people. And for me, this is just so huge. Because I thought the basic idea that Jesus had was the thing that my parents told me more than once. I love you. I just don't like you very much right now. Like, I mean, that's kind of how I thought God thought of me. Like, he loves me, but I've got all this sin and other stuff that just makes me a terrible person, and so he just doesn't like me. Jesus is at the wedding. He is frequently at parties to hang out and be with people. That really shapes the whole story from here on out, and we're going to touch on that at the end. But I just want you to know that. You know what? God likes you. He doesn't just love you. He actually likes you. So, this is what happens next. Verse 3. It says, when the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, they have no more wine. Now, before you think that Jesus' mother Mary is a raging alcoholic, let me give some explanation to that, okay? Especially those of you with a Catholic background. You're like, why is Mary so worried about the wine? We really like Mary. In their day and age, this... Okay, let me continue. In their day and age, what happened was, if you ran out of wine at the wedding, it was a big social no-no. Like, it was really, really embarrassing to run out of wine at a wedding. So much to the extent that you could actually be sued by your relatives for the shame that you brought on your family because you ran out of wine. Okay, so like, this isn't Mary like going, hey, we need something here. I'm getting a little rough. The relatives are here. We need a little more. I mean, this is like a big deal, especially to the people who are at the wedding. Like, they have no more wine. Now this is important because it was a big deal, but I want to say on the other end, like no one's dying, right? Like, no, they're still married. No one's going to lose their head. There's nothing like that. So she comes to Jesus with this, and then this is Jesus' response. He says this, he says, dear woman, why do you involve me? Jesus replied, my time has not yet come. His mother said to the servants, do whatever he tells you. And I read that and I just think, she doesn't seem to hear him very much. Like, Like, my time has not yet come. Do what he tells you. And I just always wanted the next verse to be like, and Jesus said, Mom. But it doesn't say that. And so this is what threw me off, is why did Mary come to Jesus? Because at this point in time, he's done no miracles. And I always used to wonder, did he have something going on beforehand that they knew he would do stuff like this? They knew he was the Son of God, but the miracle thing he hadn't done yet. So when he was a kid, was he turning water into wine at home? Was he putting his brothers in a box and sawing them in half? Rabbit out of the hat? I always thought Jesus had this nice magic sideshow that he did until 33. It's oh yeah, now I'm going to do what I came here for. That's what I would have done if I had those parents. Ha! And stuff like that. And so I was so why is she coming to him when he doesn't do any miracles yet? And it's really interesting. History tells us that Jesus' father, Joseph, has already passed away at this point in time. And Jesus is the oldest kid in the family. And he was a carpenter. And so Mary would have gotten used to relying on Jesus. She would have relied on him financially, for resources, for food. He would have been the main moneymaker in their family. She also would have gotten used to going to him for help. That's significant. When Mary comes to Jesus in this moment, she is not asking for a miracle. Now, I imagine deep within her, she knew that he had the power to do something like that. But she's not looking for water into wine. She's just looking for help. And she's like, hey, they've run out of wine. And it's is there, I don't know, do you have some money? Is there someone you can talk to? Your disciples look like a rough bunch. Surely they have some wine with them. There's something along those lines. There's got to be someone, especially Peter, go ahead, Peter. Thank you. Just contribute a little. And so, she's looking for him, and she's just going, hey, could you help me with this a little bit? I think this is so important, because I think this is the primary fundamental way that we come to Jesus. And it's not, I need a miracle. It's not, God, I need this. This must happen. I need you to shine through. I need a sign in the sky. I need something like that. I think this is far more significant when you come to him and just go, can you help? I need some help. I'm having all these problems with my kid. And I think they're going to go down this path, and I don't want them to go down this path. And so I kind of reach in, and I want to control everything that they're doing, but I know I'm not supposed to do that, so I go off, but they keep going further down that path. And so I reach in again, and they go even further down that path, and I just need some help. And you say, I don't know what it is. I don't know what happened. When we got married, we were here, and now we're here. And I don't know how that happened, because we're here, and I expected us always to be here. But somewhere from here, the time we got married, now we're end up here, and I don't know what to do. I need help. And it's, what the problems are mounting up. The issues are mounting up, and I'm just getting really tired. I don't need a miracle. I just need help. Now look at it like this. In this moment, there are people, when this happens, there are people who are starving. There are people who are dying. There are wars going on. And Mary thinks that it is okay to come to Jesus with the problem of they have no more wine. Now again, that was a significant issue to them in terms of their social reputation. But if they run out of wine, what happens? The party stops. They might get sued by their relatives. That's about it. No one dies. Nothing like that happens. And I think a lot of times for us, we get in the spot where we think the only way we can come to Jesus if it's this big, huge problem. And the thing that I always hear people say, which just cracks me up, it's sometimes I'll talk to people about issues that they're struggling with. And so they'll just go on and they'll start talking about it. And as they start talking about it, they feel uncomfortable about the thing that they're sharing, like it's not that big of a deal. And then they'll usually kind of resort to this. And this is always kind of the thing that everybody keeps in their back pocket. And well, I know there's starving kids in Africa. And it's just like, I was thinking, like, wait, where did that come from? Like, I mean, it's like, we were talking about your marriage, and now, but there's starving kids in Africa. And it's like, well, we're really tight financially. And I know there's starving kids in Africa. And it's like, what? And the issue is that we think that if our problem isn't the biggest problem in the world, then we can't come to Jesus with it. But the same issues are going on in their world in this day and age. And Mary comes to Jesus and she says, hey, they have no more wine. Can you help? God's not embarrassed. God is not going to scorn you when you come to him with seemingly little things. If it matters to you, it matters to him. Like, if it's that big a deal that it's occupying your minds, he's not going to look at you and go, don't you know there's starving kids in Africa? Shouldn't you be praying about that instead? Like, no. So she says, hey, they have no more wine. Can you help? And this is what he does. Verse 6. It says, nearby stood 6 stone water jars, the kind used by the Jews for ceremonial washing, each holding from 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, fill the jars with water. So they filled them to the brim. Then he told them, now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet. They did so. And the master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine. He did not realize where it had come from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. And I just read that, and honestly, that just kind of, I read that and I think, what's the point? You know? There's a little part of me, and I know this may sound really irreverent, there's a little part of me that it just kind of feels like a cheap magic trick. Like, right? Like, I mean, dead to life, that's cool. Water to wine, it's just kind of like, eh. I can tell you who was pumped. I bet you the disciples were pumped. They're like 2 days into following this guy, like, water into wine. We picked the right guy, am I right? Like, maybe he'll do it again. This is good. But it's kind of like you just read this and it's like, okay. And then we get this really important detail at the end. And it doesn't seem significant, but I think it matters so much. So the verse finishes with this. It says, so the master brings it to the master of the ceremony. It says, then he called the bridegroom aside and said, everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then the cheaper wine after the guests have had too much to drink. But you have saved the best till now. And when I read that at first, I thought it was a compliment. Like, I thought he's like pulling him aside, putting his arm around him, like nudging his elbow, like, but you, tousle his hair, you saved the best wine till now. And he's not actually complimenting him. He's just making an observation. And the reason, it's very interesting to me that John chooses to include that observation in this story. Because he wants us to know that Jesus didn't just turn water into wine, he turned it into the best wine. He didn't just do the miracle and supply the need. He turned it into the best stuff there was. And so what happens at the end of the day from this? Like, seriously, what's accomplished? Well, the disciples knew that Jesus could do miracles. The servants knew that Jesus could do miracles. But big picture, what happened? The party went on? Like, really? Is that it? The party continued? And the answer is yes. And that doesn't seem like a big deal, but it is. Because Jesus finds himself frequently at parties because he likes people. And so Jesus would choose as his very first miracle to prolong the party. And so he can stay with people and hang out with them. And I think for most of our lives, we've been fed this thing. And the main message that we get in church is, you're a sinner, you're a sinner, you're a sinner. Which is true. But the vast majority of people that I've met don't need further convincing that they're a bad person, right? Like most of us know that deep down within us, we're messed up. Like most of us know that there are things that are wrong within us, and then we come in over and over again, and it's you're a sinner, you're a sinner, you're a sinner. Which again, it's true. But even I believe our most prideful and arrogant acts are rooted out of our insecurity. Even our most outlandish things that people would say, well, he's so arrogant, he's so full of himself, is rooted in the fact that we know that within us there's something wrong and we're trying to compensate for it on the outside. And the thing that isn't often said is that, you know what? You're broken. You are messed up. You have so many problems. You have so many issues. But Jesus wants to go to a party with you. And he wants to hang out with you. Because he likes you. He likes you. Doesn't just love you, but likes you. And that's significant. Because if he just loved you and didn't like you, it would be easy to believe that God wanted something from you and not something for you. But the fact that he cares about you and would want to hang out with you lets you know that no matter what comes your way, no matter what message is preached, and again, this is at the very beginning of the Gospel of John, whatever happens over the next 19 chapters is for your good. Because he is acting on your behalf. We see this theme of party come up over and over again throughout the Bible. One of the clearest indicators of it is in Luke 15 when Jesus tells the story that we know today as the parable of the prodigal son. And what happens in this story is Jesus tells the story of there's a father who has two sons. And the younger son looks at the father, the one we usually view as the bad son, and says, hey, you have lots of money. I don't like you. I wish you were dead. Could I have your money as if you were dead? And the father goes, yeah, here you go. And so he takes it, travels off to a distant land, blows every last penny of it on friends and partying and all these other things that he shouldn't have been doing. He uses his money incredibly unwisely. And so much so that he ends up needing to get a job. He's working at a pig farm. He has so little money, so little food, that he wants to eat the food that the pigs are eating. Finally comes to his senses and says, my father has food to spare. I'll just go home, apologize, see if I can just work for him. And so he sets out on his way back home and he starts rehearsing the speech over and over again. Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. And he says it over and over again as he's rounding down the hill to go back to his house. He sees his father. His father takes off running for him. As soon as his father gets to him, he looks at his father and he starts his speech. Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. And his father cuts him off and hugs him. And then he looks back, and this is a loose translation. He says, get the streamers, get the confetti. Somewhat loose. Get wine. Thank you for the contribution. He says, let's have a feast and celebrate, because the son of mine was lost and is found. He's dead and is alive. Now let me ask you this. For some of you, you're in this stage, but for the rest of us, let's think back to our teenage years. And let's think back to that time that we broke something, or we were out too late, or we got in big trouble. And we knew we were going to have to tell our parents. And we dreaded telling our parents. And what would you think if you went up to your parents and you told them what had happened, and they looked at you and said, let's have a party? Like you would go, someone needs to lock mom up because she has lost her mind. Like you would think she is absolutely crazy. You go, what on earth is going on here? I mean, I can remember these interactions. My parents loved me. And I knew when I came to them, it was a seat would be pulled out at the kitchen table. And I'd take my seat. And I'd prepare for the lecture. And there would be a lecture. And this is how it happened. This is how we solved problems. And I had to learn from it. I'm not saying these are bad things. Like, you have this, especially those of you who have kids who have been or are teenagers. Like, when something bad happens, you judge the other parents who don't discipline their kids, right? You're like, they're never going to learn from it. That's probably why they're going to end up in jail. Not my kid. I'm going to discipline them. I'm going to take everything away. Like, that's what we think. But Jesus says, I'm the Father who throws a party. Our God fixes problems with parties. He fixes problems with parties. That's absurd. That doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't. Like we even see in this instance, the older son, because he's got his brother. The older son is there, and like he's the one who's sitting back and he's going, "What's going on? Like, this is crazy. What are we doing?" And I understand that. Like, I would have been him. But the father goes, No. We have to throw a party because he's back. And this is what I want you to hear. And I know it sounds simple, and I know it sounds elementary. But God likes you. Like, he likes you. And I think we get the idea that if we believe he's here in spiritual presence, but we get the idea that if he was here in his physical presence, that like he would kind of mill around, talk to us, maybe tell us some of the things that we're doing wrong, walk out with us to the lobby, and then as soon as we left the lobby, he'd be like, No, I only do church services. Like, I'm sorry, I need to stay in here. I don't leave the church. That's what I do. But this is showing us that, you know what, if this was going on, he would go with us. Like, he would hang out with us. He would want to talk. He'd go to a movie. Like, maybe just PG, which I understand. I'm not going to complain there. Like, he'd go out to eat with us. Probably not Ponderosa. Like, I don't think that was from him. He'd be like, yeah, Burger King, Applebee's, Bob Evans. Yeah, that's my thing. Ponderosa, that's not for me. Sorry. But I think that's significant. That Jesus would want to just spend time with you. Because he likes you. He cares enough about wine at a wedding. And so why couldn't you go to him with your problems? Why couldn't you go to him with the things that in your head you tell yourself, oh, it doesn't matter that much. It's not that significant. And he just goes, you know what? Come to me. I want you to have life. I want you to have life. Hang out. Spend time. Because you have a God that doesn't just love you. He likes you as well. And that's how you know that he doesn't just want something from you. He wants something for you. Let me pray for us. Father, I just want to pray for all of us who are here. For the times that we convince ourselves that our problems don't matter, for the times that we tell ourselves that our issues aren't significant, and for all the times that we think that if we're not in church, if we're not praying, or if we're not reading our Bible, that you don't care. For all the times that we think if we're not doing something that is quote-unquote spiritual, that you just want nothing to do with it. But Lord, help us to see you as you really are, that you are a God who wants to be a part of every single facet of our lives, that you care, that you want to spend time with us, that when we leave church services, it doesn't mean we're leaving you. That when we leave these things that we deem as spiritual, that you say that everything is spiritual, because you care about every part of our life. That you want to spend time with us. That you want to be with us. And Lord, in my head, I have no category to understand a God who fixes problems with parties. But I know this, that I want to follow that God every day of my life, whether I understand it or not. And help us to do just that.